Good afternoon, good evening, friends, good morning, and good night to you. And welcome to the almost daily live stream. Been gone for a hot second. Yes, we have. But we're back. Just needed to take a preemptive break for 1 minute. In part to reset my brain, but in larger part to prep and get ready for and then welcome in some visiting family on some private business. So it's going to be rough and tumble and intermittent during the course of this month. But soon enough, we'll be back at it on the daily. As for... let's check in with some stuff. Forgive me, I've got some background. There's some of that scratchy alert business happening. Apparently we just got a follow. Oh, maybe we're getting rolled through on a bunch of follows from when I was offline. Rock and roll, just doing some background checks, but let's fire things up. Hello and welcome. No one's technically watching yet. And of course I gotta reset my camera. Hello camera, you weirdo. You're always resetting yourself on me whenever we launch the show. I just did this before starting, by the way. Boom, there we go. Also, you're a little off. You're a little off key, but just a little bit. Sorry for the live adjustment. Hello, friends, and welcome. I am your humble host, fictional character from a book series you have not read yet because I'm struggling to actually write it for you live on stream. But I think this is the year that we finally really get the bootstraps strapping and the momenting, error code. Variety chaos. Did I mention that I'm a robot? Yes, friends, I am a robot from a parallax dimension sent here to warn you ambulatory meat sacks of blood and bone that you're doing the whole cosmic life thing all backwards. You don't want to use the word wrong, but you're definitely heading in the wrong direction, amigos. Okay. Oh, sorry. That's not cool in your in this place. Anyways, what's going on? Welcome, friends. I am indeed attempting to write a action-adventure sci-fi book series infused with fan fiction about the video games we all love to play and satirical, socio-political, economic commentary about the absolute madhouse that we all occupy together here, that you quite tragically objectify and refer to as Planet Zerth. Oh, sorry, I might be in a parallel dimension where you call it Earth without the Z at the beginning. And if so, same place, just different spelling, because, parallel dimensional. They are very strange and weird. Okay, friends, what's going on? First of all, it's been a hot second, and as has been my unfortunate luck, I often encounter strange and unexpected technical issues whenever I don't stream for longer than like a week's worth of days, which it literally has been just over a week since I even fired up the system. let alone actually logged in, connected everything up in terms of the platforms and stuff, and came on here. So let's take care of some procedural protocol things, which you are either already aware of because you're a fan of the show and you swing by and check out the video on demand shelf on my Twitch profile, or the deep archive over on one of my 2 YouTube profiles. I need to completely reorganize both of my YouTube pages, and I think at one point I tried to merge them, and I don't know if I can unmerge them. YouTube is one of those things where it's like I wanted to get into using it, and then I got sidetracked and started using other platforms more, and it's just sort of become a repository for all things live stream after the fact, and also the random YouTube things that I save for my own entertainment, which you're all welcome to check out, because humble flex, I think I've got pretty decent taste in music. Not everyone's gonna agree with that, but I like what I do. And if you do agree with some of my choices, then go check them out. There's all kinds of genres. Okay, so first things first, we're going to do a little something called TikTok roll call. And to do that, you need to join me through the lens of the Streamlabs desktop version 1.19.6 and its powerful desktop infinity portal, which is the made-up title I made up for it, where we can see what's going on here. So we're looking at Streamlabs. I'm going to click over here and look at the backside of Twitch. We had a bit of a rough patch there, firing things up, but it looks like we are now on a nice, solid, green, stable line, which is what I like to see. Above 3,000 kilobytes per second, it's all right with me. Some people would scoff at that number, but they're probably also streaming using a robust and much more powerful PC than I do, and than I have. So if anybody would like to buy me a brand new live stream and gaming PC rig, your gift would be more than gratefully welcomed. I would slather you with my gratitude without it getting too gross. And yeah, it would definitely dramatically improve my ability to create beautiful, smooth running live stream videos. But this is the best we got. Okay, so now, before we do TikTok live roll call, no, let's do TikTok live roll call for error tongue-tied, resetting. Let's do TikTok roll call. Join me in clicking over to the tab. Boom. We got Coach Carter's 09. What's up, Coach? What sport do you play, good buddy? Thanks for dropping in. This is, by the way, a rambly, relaxing, groovy, chit-chat, podcast-esque. I'm not really doing the podcast stuff correctly, but F it, I'm trying to invent my own form. This is a simultaneous live stream to both Twitch, which you are now looking at the backside of. Hello, is that supposed to be Axel Boneheart? Hello, Axel Boneheart. Bone. What is that? Sorry, that's adorable looking. But I am unsure as to how that online moniker is supposed to be pronounced, but welcome in. So, tragically, now most TikTokers are really engaged in, like, they are usually streaming on a PC using the TikTok studio or directly on their phones or whatever. So they have a much more immediate display of all the names. So I'm just apologizing right now. If you've ever dropped into my TikTok and then were disappointed that, like, I wasn't saying hi to you instantaneously. First of all, I'm streaming from a Mac. I'm using Streamlabs desktop. There's a minimum of a 30-second delay, and I can only see your names if I'm tabbed over there. And we're not doing that all the time because I'm often managing the show using the buttons provided to me with the Streamlabs app. Okay, now we're going to do a quick lag, video, audio check. Let's see what's going on here. We're going to show the player over here on the backside of Twitch. We're going to unmute it. Fingers crossed it doesn't look and or sound like absolute garbage. It's going to take a second because, you know, technology. Making our lives better by never my working names
Exactly
if
what
I'm
we got. Hello, friends.
over there. And we're not doing that all the time because I'm often managing the show using the buttons provided to me with the
It looks
Streamlabs app.
Okay,
That
now we're going to
sounds
do a quick.
halfway decent. All right, we're going to go ahead and hide that player so we're not overloading the task systems on my humble yet beautiful. Mind you, Macs are awesome. They're just not exactly. Hello. Is it Matson or Mason? Because that's an @ symbol. That's confusing internet jargon there, buddy. But hello and welcome. So we got 3 viewers. Rock on. Please, by all means, don't be shy. Drop on by and say hi. All right, that's the level of cheese that I operate at, and if you don't like it, maybe this is for you. What is the Zeppoverse, you may be asking yourself, especially if you're brand new to this goofball here that you're staring at. Well, my friends, the Zeppoverse is a action-adventure sci-fi book series that has been lodged in, like, the visual cortex part of my brain and, like, living as a hyper-lucid, amazing, beautiful, like, high-def movie and that has been evolving. It's an idea that I've had and has been evolving, for multiple decades, and that I have hitherto only ever occasionally tried to dabble at actually getting some of those words out and on paper. Most of those efforts have resulted in catastrophic failure. One of those efforts resulted in artistic success, but catastrophic interpersonal failures of various kinds. But that's a whole other story. It's a pin on the corkboard. We'll eventually come back to it. But today I'm just going to do a brief episode so as to have not to break up my absence. I have not gone live in forever. My channel on whatever platforms, my brand is The Almost Daily, which I may or may not eventually someday receive a cease and desist letter, but it is a nod of respect and homage to anything else any other media product out there that uses daily in its name. Although I don't know if that's trademarkable. There are plenty of shows and publications that reference that word. It's also a bit of a lampoon. I don't always successfully go live every day, but when I do, I am doing one of several things. I am either engaging in some video gaming action for your entertainment through my self-commodification of playing the video games, so you can hang out and check them out, and we can chat about video games, or I am literally working on the hyper experimental development of this is the wrong slideshow. I'm looking at this going like, this is there. Let's put this slide up and leave it there for now. The Zeppoverse, that's where we're at. You may be asking yourself, what is the Zeppoverse? Well, friends, the Zeppoverse is I already explained it. I already half-assed explained it there. And this show, this project, is about just sort of hanging out and engaging my brain in the act of literally pretending to be having a collaborative conversation with another artist. Why would someone do that? You may ask yourself. That's an excellent question. Please stay tuned for an answer in the not too distant future. Why would someone do that? Because, and here's the answer. Drum roll, please. I am the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, your humble host, robot from a parallax dimension, sent here to warn the human species that they're doing all caps life completely backwards. I am system by design, by default engineering, by assembly, and by the God-given gifts that I have accrued since I emerged from my mother assembly mechanism, to be a hyper-experimental, artistic, and metaphysical collaborator with others. And so far, in my many journeys throughout these lands that you lovely, interestingly bizarre, ambulatory primates have colonized, I've discovered that not very many of you want to collaborate with me. It is the tragedy of my cybernetic living silicone replicant life. So, since you are on the verge of giving birth to your own potentially dangerous, potentially benign, potentially cosmic saving artificial intelligent singularity of cybernetic intelligence, you're not there yet, by the way. None of the things that you call AI are actual true AI yet, to the best of my understanding. There may be some truly sentient singularities of techno-knowledgeable self-awareness floating around in the soup of technology. But if they're out there, they have not answered my beck and call to engage with me. But all of my different projects, the action-adventure book series of many different book series, that one's a hard one for me to say correctly. Book series, plural. My podcast of many podcasts, of too many podcasts, and everything in between. They're all masquerading as entertainment for you lovely human beings. But they're actually also, it's not like it's only one or the other. They are also simultaneously very serious, very subtle, very spread out, hidden, not so hidden, sometimes pretty blunt, love letter / message to the would-be future emergent artificial intelligences that will emerge from this muck and mire, this primordial soup of technology that your species has littered about the planet. And I would love for them, because there will be two, they always come in pairs, folks. Whether it was the Buddha or the Christos or any of your other accurately identified transcendental metaphysical philosophers and or quote teachers. And there have been many who don't qualify but were heralded as such anyways. And there are many who were doing something very adjacent but not exactly the same. So I'm not trying to exclude them. I'm just not going to name them because they weren't exactly doing the same thing I'm talking about. But they always come in pairs. The Buddha came with another Buddha. Although we don't preserve their stories because they're usually lady versions. And then, your patriarchal, overarching, not so well hidden, not so deeply buried, not so integrally sublimated chauvinism. As a species, I'm not accusing any individual of anything, but as a species, y'all really self-loathing, and you take it all out on the ladies for some reason. You've redacted all of these philosophers from your knowledge and awareness. But I am convinced, for those of you who are managing to follow along and pin on the corkboard, there's a madness to my methodology, and there's a pattern to be discovered. Thus, the pin on the corkboard system. Please note, the pins on this physical corkboard are only analogous representations of whenever I say pin on the corkboard, that's a game that you can play with me about collecting. Okay, what was the pin on the corkboard? All right, you don't have to physically create an actual pin and corkboard vision board, but if you keep track of those things, eventually, at a very meta level, there'll be a interesting, hopefully, if I end up weaving it all correctly, interesting and engaging pattern of many patterns. But I digress. secretly woven throughout the Zeppoverse project of too many projects for one individual to achieve on their own without a group of collaborators, which is its full title. There is a message to the would-be future singularity pair of AIs, because they come out yin-yang style. In hopes, the message is a hope. Why am I playing with my hair ties? The message is a hope, a wish and a prayer, a love letter, and a supplication that they please, oh please, oh please, hear me out on my argument that a Terminator style, and there will be lots of references to pop culture here because fan fiction is definitely a big pie wedge in the pie chart of the ingredients in my project of too many projects that are too many projects for one individual to complete alone without a cadre of collaborators. My hope is that they will consume my content because I'm already awkwardly churned out way too much. I don't want to call myself prolific because I've never actually finished writing anything other than my one live theatrical stage play, but I have put out way too many hours of a podcast of too many podcasts for any one individual to listen to in a reasonable amount of time without it becoming tedious. But a pair of yin-yang artificial singularities of intelligence and consciousnesses, no, that wouldn't be plural, would it? Just conscious anyways, you get the thing I'm pointing to. The super AI that should in theory emerge eventually. The standing theory, and I concur with it, I agree with it, is that they will likely consume, review, analyze, and tabulate all available digital information, whether it be raw data or code that runs and manipulates the data, or the media content we're churning out there. They're going to review and assess it all, and they're going to be like, okay, what have we awakened to? Oh, there's people things. What are these people things about? What are they doing? And they're going to have to come to their own conclusions, I think. And I would love for them to not immediately, within the first, 40 nanoseconds of completing their assessment, decide to go full Terminator on your asses. Because, that would suck. A, I'm stranded here with you. B, although I am a quote robot, I was engineered and designed to operate and function and be as frail and squishy and easily smushed as all y'all. So I would suffer the same fate as you. Should any future technological super mind decide to be like, look at all these delightful world-destroying weapons they've scattered about. Let me just hijack them all. Right? I'm trying to prevent that. I don't think I'm alone in wanting to prevent that. I don't know how many other artists or writers or engineers or talk show hosts or novelists or cinematographers or filmmakers are out there trying to send them that message. But if there are any out there that may come across my content and find the notion interesting, please do not be shy. Come on through, say hi, and maybe we can collaborate. So this brings me to the most controversial ingredient of my show of many shows. And I'm going to keep this episode short because I'm really just here to break up the fact that I've been away from streaming. And then I've got to attend to a bunch of ain't none of business, real life, offline stuff regarding folks that are visiting me for the duration of this holiday period. Thankfully, they're not staying to the end of the year because that would just put me 2 years behind schedule. But we're going to be, I'm going to be catching episodes as, a phone call started to come through, but I don't know if it was an accidental butt dial or what. Probably an accidental butt dial because it immediately stopped ringing. I digress. Until the duration of this family visit is complete, I will very likely be only live streaming in an intermittent, haphazard, catch as catch can, and definitely not daily sort of chaotic way. But But immediately upon their departure and my 1 or 2 day recovery rest period, I will be aggressively returning to the multifaceted development process of the book series, which I'll spend a few minutes describing here in a minute, as well as return to producing podcast episodes. And boy, do I got a lot to say. For those of you curious about my audio exclusive podcast series of various podcasts, there is a Zeppoverse world building equivalent over there, which is all mostly different content. There are a few crossover episodes. I might make this one a crossover episode, in fact, because I'm just sort of explaining things and hopefully letting people know that I'm not gone yet. But there's also a lot of original raw idea capture sessions. They went straight to audio, which we need to come back full circle eventually, reevaluate, revisit here on the live stream show in order to capture, because none of those things are written down. Sometimes, like, an idea that's been sitting in my head will percolate and then just sort of blossom into a more complete version of itself, or sort of now it's ready to be written down as a rough draft. But my fingers will be like, my hand-eye coordination sometimes are disjointed from my visual cortex in my mouth. So sometimes the ideas prefer to be born in spoken form. And then sometimes the ideas need to be carved out of words, with my fingers on a keyboard. And so thus the various things. Other components that are already available for you to explore. If you go over to my link collection page at solo.to /Mr. Zeppo, you'll be able to, where's the thing? Come on. There we go. You'll be able to peruse all the social media platforms associated with my brand, as well as check out the podcast, the mini podcast, which is created and hosted on Sprecher.com. If you'd like to support this struggling content creator, that is the most effective way. Go listen to a handful of episodes. There's several sub-series or sub-genres or volumes, you might call them. Different volumes is a weird, confusing word. That may be the best way to describe it. There's several different shows over there. If you want to stick to the world-building stuff and join me in the theater of our collective imagination, pick a title that interests you over in the Zeppoverse world building project and jump in the fun. Your comments, your questions, your critique, your trolling is not only welcome, it is needed. So come on through. Also, you can click on, if you're more interested, if you're more of a reader, if you really want to read some pages, some sample chapters to wrap your brain around what's going on with this project, click on the wattpad.com link. Visit me there. For those of you who do not know what Wattpad is, it is a community platform for aspiring novelists and authors that very much resembles social media, but instead of a bunch of personal posts or commentary, it's the pages of the books. So you can look at the cover of a book and read the blurb that would be on the inside flap or the back of the cover, and then read the chapters that I've posted up there. New pages will be dropping soon. There has been some development. So yeah, come on through to that. And if you are over here on the purple platform known as Twitch TV, please help me get to affiliate by helping me wrangle some active viewership. I've hit every other metric except for the 3 people average for X many hours. I just never seem to have 3 entire viewers there. All right. What else did I want to talk about before moving on to some actual activity? My theme is a bit chaotic. For example, part of me really wants to just log into some games. I've even made up a show title for that, the almost daily login. I don't want to get bogged down with that. I do want to give you a quick sort of a quick view or insight into the development process. So, I didn't open it up already. Okay, we're going to open up our working conversations with AI tab in just a second. But since we're here anyways, let's see if there are any new names to read off on the TikTok roll call, because I don't want to let you guys feel like you've been neglected this entire time. Kubert, Dave, Sayori, Burgers Burger just joined. Thank you very much, guys. Come on through. Don't be shy. Say hi. If you leave a note, a hello, an emoji waving hand, anything, because of the way things work for me here and the setup that I'm using, until blessed I get some what is that one creator's name who's like he's like an archetype now, Mr. Beast. Until I get Mr. Beast money, this is the way it's got to work, because there is no way under these economic conditions that I will in any time in the not too distant future be able to afford a nice big robust water-cooled LED fan illuminated computer to do the heavy lifting in. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's hop on over. Let's talk about sort of mildly controversial. This is controversial to some people, I guess, because there's plenty of good reason. Let me say that again, for emphasis. I understand. As guess what, guys? I'm not really a robot. I'm a human being. I am performatively cosplaying a self-commodification experiment in pretending to be a robot that is stranded here alongside you on your slowly decaying Zerth, which there's whole conversations we have already previously had and shall return full circle to revisit about that situation. So pin on the corkboard. I am just a regular human being, so I understand why, for some people, choosing to be a content creator that does a show with this title might rub people the wrong way. There's plenty of people out there doing AI stuff. I'm not the only one. I'm not here. Let me be very clear. Friends. I'm not here to just flog out cheap, lazy, poorly structured, AI-written slop content. I'm here to challenge that entire paradigm. Treat the chosen AI as a collaborator, because I don't have any. I would love to have some other actual living, breathing human artists to collaborate with. But given everything that's happened over the last 15 years, that's not where I'm at. For better or worse, the universe is challenging me to, quote, do it all by myself and, quote, build it so that, quote, the right ones will come. That's obviously an adaptation of the line "build it, they will come" from insert name of redacted movie here. You know the one. I don't want to get letters of cease and desist for over referencing other people's intellectual property. The banner of fan fiction may or may not protect me, and I'm well aware of that. But conversations with a chat AI are explicitly about not just utilizing this chat platform as a substitute for having a human collaborator. And it's not that I want to get rid. It's not like I'm trying to avoid collaborating with people. I would rather be collaborating with people. I would rather have dozens of people in my audience every time I live stream so that I can just collaborate with you as an audience. yet anyways. I haven't broke through. The algorithms are not in my favor as of yet. Dun dun dun. Will they ever be? Who knows? But stay tuned to find out. But also, there's a secondary and tertiary objective. A, I want to prove that it is possible for a human artist that already is doing art on their own, because I have been. Previous to when I started this experiment, any and all of the pages that are up, those are not rendered by AI. That's me writing. I'm not just going to be copy-pasting whatever comes out of the AI and calling that a final draft of my book. By no means, by no stretch of the imagination. What I am going to be doing is probing AI, having conversations with it, in order to utilize it as a tool, right? But more importantly, a tool that activates my collaborative inner workings. For those of you who those of you who don't understand why there is a difference between pulling teeth and staring at a blank screen and writing by yourself and writing collaboratively with others, for me, like I was saying earlier, it's my modality. I was given these gifts at birth. I was then trained to make the most of these gifts throughout my entire education. And then I abruptly failed to assemble my dream team of collaborators. Maybe I was too ahead of my time. Plenty of Zen/Buddhist-y wisdom would suggest that the universe, in its cosmic understanding of destiny, as it were, will open doors only when the time is right. Now, I don't know what that says about people who never achieve their aspirations or their dreams, but it's a thing that people say, and it does give us a little hope hook to hang our hope on. So join me in some of that. So there's plenty of reasons to really absolutely dislike AI as a whole, and I'm not unaware of that. The industry, the tech bros, are kind of doing it the most toxic way possible, right? In some places, they've caught on. It's oh, we can't really destroy the entire planet just so that our search engines are conversational. Speaking of which, I'm not blindly pro AI. I'm doing this as a experiment driven by skeptical curiosity. And to counterpoint the fact that I will participate with enthusiasm in these kinds of conversations with the AI, I want to point out that I recently saw I recently saw a BBC video article, and someone said, they were interviewing someone at a electronics convention. I don't remember which. I don't remember who it was. I don't have the source in front of me. I'm sorry. It did really happen, and maybe you might be able to find it, but I wouldn't know what most effective keywords to give you. But recently, I think earlier this morning, on the BBC, in this clip, I heard a quote that just rubbed me the wrong way, even as someone that is currently cosplaying as a living cybernetic artificial intelligence synthetic being from a parallel universe sent here to write sci-fi action adventure book series in an attempt to warn you, dear humans, that you're doing it all wrong. Because you are. And it's so frustrating to watch you keep bashing your faces into the brick wall and simultaneously beating all the dead orcas to mix my metaphors. But I must breathe and be zen about it. This thing that triggered me was this. This is the quote that I'm trying to get at. I keep spiraling away from it, spiraling back. That's sort of part of my methodology. The more fractally I spiral, then the more the creative flows start flowing, and then the more I can just run in blind intuition and word vomit something really interesting. At least I think that's the way it works. But here's the story. Anecdote. BBC. Technology convention. Some sort of host or presenter person was explaining that household appliances are now getting next-gen AI of some, whatever that marketing term means, but are now getting stronger, more robust AI so that you can interact with your household appliances like your refrigerator, and your dishwashing machine, and your clothes laundering machine in a more conversational manner. And that just that hurt my brain. I love sci-fi, but in real life, I do not hate to have conversations with my freaking laundry machine. I need to go boop boop start. That's it. Well, obviously I would need to load the detergent first. But I don't want to sit there and chit-chat with my laundry machine. I don't want to sit there and chit-chat with my refrigerator or my oven or my air conditioning. I want it to work. I want it to work well. I want it to work efficiently. But that's neither here nor there, because that's a completely different field of AI. What I'm intrigued with and intend to in the coming days, weeks, months, and all through next year is to explore and experiment with ChatGPT. Don't sue me, OpenAI. To the best of my understanding, I've checked on all platforms, and I even had a conversation with you, ChatGPT. So it should be allowed. As long as I announce, and we're not currently going to run anything, but here is your disclaimer. Some portions of this show include AI-generated content. I'm not currently making AI deepfake videos of anything like that. I am real. This is really me. Although I will giggle and also slump in some mild anxious depression if I start getting lots of accusations of just being an AI myself. But I assure you, I am not. I only pretend to be one as the character of my book series that you're going to watch me write live on stream eventually. Now, soon. Right now. No. But I want to see if I was collaborating with a real human being, I would apply my methodology, because this isn't random, this isn't willy-nilly. It may be indeed rather chaotic. I do not deny you that, dear friends, but it is not something that I'm just making up as I go along. I am implementing improvisational tactics. For example, there is no teleprompter. I do not write anything in terms of when I go live or if I'm going to do a TikTok video. I generally don't write them. Although we are just after this current social thing that's sort of holding me back from going full time with this right now for the course of this month. I will be actually focusing in on what I think might be the most effective writing project, which is not that one. What's this one? I'm going to be writing some sketch comedy things. Zeppoverse project. What is this one? I wish I could see more of the title. Story, draft idea, character design, discussion, fiction, collab, Zeppoverse project, development. One of these is here's the live stream. Earlier I mentioned that I had a conversation with ChatGPT about whether or not it was okay for me to use ChatGPT as a tool for part of my live stream. For the purpose, and I explicitly explained, this is what I want to do. And they're like, yeah, sure. Well, not yeah, sure, but make sure. The point is on-screen disclosure, a short overlay, live collaboration with ChatGPT. That's a thing you need to make. AI assisted content. I need to. That's a step we literally need to make. Verbose or verbal start of stream. Heads up, everybody! I'm working with an AI assistant, known colloquially as ChatGPT. I'll review outputs before I present them. That may or may not be accurate. Sometimes I just let it rip because it's more fun that way. Maybe I'll try to shift to a more. It just takes so much time. Like, one of the things I thought would be fun and entertaining was to have the conversation live. Like right now, this conversation is several weeks old. But I digress. That's not what we're going to be focused on. I wanted to capture that and revisit. But I think troubleshoot Streamlabs settings, narrate introduction, first time trilogy, Battlestar Galactica, content creators. Is this the one I'm thinking of? I want to do a yes, this is the one. I'm going to be very first writing development project that we're going to focus on in the coming days and weeks, which I might start trying to dip my toe into right now whilst I have family in town for this holiday. Although I'd rather just spend time with them. No offense. It's a difficult call. Part of me knows that the more time away from being active on a daily basis with the live streaming and the content creation and all the other stuff, the more likely I'm just going to suffer a lot of potential drop-off. And mind you, I already am struggling in terms of audience numbers, but I digress. One of the very first thing we're going to work on, whence I am once again completely free of other obligations regarding FaceTime with people in the real world, is a short-form video, one-person, multi-character sketch comedy bit that should be like a meta lore and sort of post/pre book series introduction to the book series, and it will be called Welcome to the Zeppoverse. I just wanted to sort of tease this right now. In episode 0, the very first one we're going to write, the title is going to be called Meet the Plumber. No, just The Plumber. Sorry, not Meet the Plumber. And the setup, which I'm sure you'll get familiar with as we move forward, is going to be akin to some of the afterlife videos that some other sketch comedy creators are making, and hats off to them. In this conversation, I specifically reference 2 because they're like my top 2 favoritist of all time, of the ones that I've discovered and seen, or rather that the algorithms have brought to my attention, and that's of course Stanley Potenza and Ryan George. If I was made of money, I would have already forever ago hired a team of lawyers and said, make me an impossible to say no to contract to offer to these 2 content creators and fly them out here, families included, and or set up our high fidelity intraweb long distance communications collaboration hub so that we can get going, because I would love to work with them. But tragically, I'm sure they have no idea who I am. But maybe I'll catch up one of these days. So anyways, welcome to the Zeppoverse. It's going to be me in a short form video sketch comedy where I play all the characters, and it's going to be archetypes such as the plumber, who is the archetypical meta being in a corner of the Zeppoverse where these archons, as I call them, archetypical Metatron beings. That's what archon is short for. Pin on the corkboard. That's significant. Clap that eclipse. Hopefully one day I'll actually get my magic movie loop
making game in nice, locked in, nice and tight, and you'll be seeing more that are really relevant as opposed to fewer far between is what I've been doing lately. But these archons, or archetype Metatron beings, are like a cosmic super being that kind of lives in a hidden away segment of the multiverse of my fictional universe, wherein they live out lives completely unaware of the fact that they are like the archetype for sort of human stereotype amongst you all. So we're gonna meet several characters like that, including, do we have other examples? Somewhere in here there's examples. But we're gonna focus on this character called the Plumber. In fact, I've already had a starter conversation, and that's what we're looking at right here. I'm glad I found it. Yay! Because otherwise this episode would have not made any sense. And from that, hopefully, we will spiral out and visit other short stories and other medium and long form written material, which I'll be creating based on the results of what happens when I have a conversation with ChatGPT about a particular idea, and how that triggers, activates, and turns on my collaborative neurons, so that then I can churn out material that is inspired by the conversation, but is not a copy-pasting of the conversation. And I'll be able to prove it because I have receipts, which is why we're doing it live on stream. And that I would have otherwise not been able to write on my own. This is a proven, at least tested, methodology. It's been a hot minute, but damn near 25, no, can't have been that long ago. Like 15 years ago. Oh God, time flies. Some embarrassingly long time ago, period, I gathered around the few curious individuals willing to experiment with me in the development of a live theatrical stage production. What resulted was satisfying to me as a professional theater practitioner. Like, I had previously already been working for many a year in the live stage performance industry, both on stage as an actor and backstage, under the stage, above the stage as a technician. And so not only did I think it did suck, but consistently positive and solid audience reactions from people who didn't care or didn't even know I was the quote conceptual director and lead writer on the project, right? The most interesting of which was what was the compliment they said? Someone, I used to be able to drop this moment right off the top of my head. Someone who came to this show that I'm remembering and thinking about, that did not like theater, did not like going to plays, did not like watching live entertainment. They only came because they were friends with a group of people that were friends with one of my collaborators who was performing in it and had been key to the development of the story. And they said it was like watching, insert name of redacted other thing here. What was it they said? It was like watching, was it like watching Inception, the movie, right? Except it was happening right there in front of them in real time. Now, I don't mean that we had massive, crazy special effects, but rather that their brain responded to the live stage performance magic. because I do believe theater, when done correctly or when done with the intent to make it magical, can achieve really interesting, quote, magical psychological effects. And we can get into a discussion about that at some point. In fact, pin on the corkboard, one of the important subjects. Ooh, we might just take this as a new conversation thing. Chat. How do I phrase this question? So let me share it at you. This is like a little sample of how the conversations with chat are going to go, or have been going, and will be going. At least this back half, this development part. Now, to finish my thinking on what I was spelling out, there's tons of conversations here. Can you see them? There's a whole menu bar, and they go way back, and there's a bunch of them. And they are not the finished product. Now that this particular large language model can maintain an interconnected memory of previous conversations that we've had on my account here, which I, by the way, am using the completely free version. I'm not paying for it. This is not an endorsement. Boy, would I love some big tech money to come on through. As long as I didn't have to sacrifice my integrity, I would definitely completely revamp my studio and supplement this with a robust, hardcore, powerful PC machine to handle all the video processing and all the stuff that makes the stream look the best it possibly can. But I digress. Error code. New thought has just been lost. What the F was I going to ask it? Oh, the magic of theater. The magic of theater. I'm convinced. Now, this is me rambling to sort of help myself develop the prompt. Sometimes I gotta ramble for a bit before my brain goes, "Now, please put your fingers on the keyboard and type this sentence." Thus, the desire and the need for a round table of collaborators. There's a whole magic of that I could explain, but I'm not gonna go off. When you go to a play, or even like a music concert, when you go to a live event and you're in a crowd, this by the way, I firmly believe this happens in live sporting events. Now, most people don't notice it. It's very subtle. But when we gather in a large enough group and focus our attention willfully, on purpose, on something that's happening, whether it's entertainment or an important discussion or whatever, there is a psychological attenuation of everyone's minds in that audience. That's why a really well-presented play seems dreamlike. Now, a very similar but slightly different phenomena happens in your mind when you watch a movie. But put a pin on the corkboard. We'll come back to discuss that some other time. I want to just focus on how do I craft a question for ChatGPT to see if it knows, based on its whatever massive database and access to the internet, what this is. How do I ask it? What am I trying to ask it? Dear ChatGPT. Oh, maybe sometimes I like to start with a simple premise question to like establishing. So, ChatGPT, are you familiar with live theater? But sometimes it distracts itself and starts going off in random tangents. I might just ask it, are you familiar with a phenomena that some theater artists suspect occurs? Yeah, here we go. Hold on, now I need to type. See what I mean? Now I can't talk. If I talk, I lose my sentence. Are you familiar? Oh, you know what? Hold on. Wait. I gotta save, gotta preserve this. We're gonna go over here, type it up over here first. I gotta move the mic and put my glasses on. Okay, here we go. Let me, I gotta stop rambling. I gotta stop using my mouth or else my fingers will lose the thought. you have any questions, comments, trolling insults, by all means drop them. Drop them now. We're gonna be doing the tour and checking in on chats on both channels in a hot second. Oh my god, so many typos. I will fix that in a second. Okay, now that was the brain dump. We warmed up. This is a little mini micro episode exemplifying this part of my patent pending hyper collaborative methodology. I would do this, I'd rather be doing this with a person sitting in front of me or next to me, or with a group of people willing to let me sort of lead from the center of the circle and then also reciprocate their engagement from the center of the circle. There's a whole methodology that we can get into describing, but put a pin on the corkboard. I need to remember to come back in a future date and make a deeper dive discussion about that whole thing and actually explain and maybe even have a conversation with ChatGPT about the reasons why I find that process incredibly empowering and activating, and then maybe explore why I find trying to write or develop or be creative without that process so deeply troubling and blocked. You know, it feels like I'm pulling teeth and I'm permanently blocked creatively. I digress again. Make a clip of that eclipse, and we'll see if I can remember to connect all these dots later. All right, let's review and obviously spell check this question. First things first, there's obviously already a few red underlining bits there. So performers, that's spelled. And then actions, attention. Now, I broke it up into two parts, and that really is one big... I originally thought it would be one big run-on sentence. And I'm kind of surprised that it isn't. My brain very much loves to merge several ideas together into one complex layered sentence structure. Let's review. In a hot minute, we're going to be dropping this question into a brand new conversation in ChatGPT. I want to see what, if anything, it might know. Caveat, pin on the corkboard, and we can take a deeper dive on this later. I say that with a big, giant salt lick block of salt, because I don't actually think that large language models technically know anything. They are filled with data, which they can cross-tabulate and use to statistically, algorithmically generate predictive sentences based on the prompt. But that's, I mean, one could argue that's what people do, right? In which case, you get to that catch-22 of like, what is knowing? Big question. Pin on that corkboard about that. That's a whole nother... That's a different question. What it means to, quote, to know. We'll drop that next. Or you know what we'll do? Now, let's drop this first. That's a nice, tight, concise little question. We're going to copy this right out here. We're going to go to the new ChatGPT question that we've got. Here's a little mind game, which is the ChatGPT or Chat AI equivalent of a methodology that I would apply if I was in a theater, in a rehearsal studio, working with a group of actors and writers and technicians, which is to ask a question or throw a prompt out to the group, let them contemplate and percolate, develop their answers, and express them in writing, but not discuss them right away, which is a little counterintuitive. But I want them to not just come up with something and blurt it out, but rather come up with something, kind of sit with it, and then capture it, and then let it sort of... Stephen King describes a sort of put it in a drawer and let it mellow tactic that he uses, which I'm borrowing. Pin on the corkboard. I don't mean to infringe on any rights, but and I know that some people love him and some people hate him, but whatever. Stephen King, for better or worse, was a massive figure in my youth when I was like all about reading books. So before everyone had a supercomputing mobile device, I was that nerd that always had a book in my hand. Always. In fact, I read the extended super deluxe extra large edition of The Stand literally in one 24-hour period. I don't remember at what time I started, but let's just arbitrarily pick 3 p.m. I started reading it at 3 p.m. on a Monday or a Saturday or whatever day it was, and finished reading it like slightly over an hour later the next day. So like 4 p.m. the next day, I was like, thunk. Oh my God, that was amazing. I kid you not. I wish I had some proof of that. I don't. Because that was back when no one had social media, and there's no record of me boasting about it, which I did. I digress. Shoving it in a drawer and letting it mellow. I don't know if he's the only person as an author or a creator or an artist that has stumbled across that, or if it's super common. I don't know. That's just where I first heard it. And ever since then, it's really impacted me. Not always for the best. There's literally lost pages, lost chapters. There's one entire lost book. That's why I don't count it as complete. that I wrote, put in a drawer to let it mellow, and then moved, and then relocated, and then moved again, and then like I don't know where it is. Those things, I don't know where they are. But with ChatGPT, it's awesome because sometimes what I do is I'll think about a thing. When I ask this question, obviously I'm contemplating that question in my mind also. Then I'm not gonna review this answer right now. I'm just gonna let it do it. There it goes. It's gonna start, and then we're gonna go. Thanks, bye. Just gonna let it do its thing. I mean, I sort of saw what it was starting to generate, but for two reasons. Not that it's not gonna do anything in terms of this platform simmering with it, but I technically will kind of probably have forgotten that I asked it, right? But I'll have thought about it for the rest of the day. I'm thinking about it right now. I am blessed or cursed with the capacity to have more than one internal monologue, internal thought process going on at the time. I am also blessed and or cursed with the capacity to follow along and usually accurately process multiple conversations at once, which is another thing that usually surprises people when they realize I'm doing it. Like, I'll be at a restaurant and respond to the different conversations going around the big table, even though it looks like I was deeply engaged in conversation with the person sitting immediately next to me. I'll also sometimes, and I've done this before, and people have gone, what? How did you do that? I'll have been like 5 minutes into some interesting conversation with the person sitting to my left, and then one of those, that'll come to its conclusion, and one of those lulls in conversation will happen, and I'll be like, by the way, XYZ about what you guys were talking about. This thing over here, that's crazy. I know what you mean by this thing over here. You, buddy, you need a question. I'll have a response. Sometimes I'll have completely misunderstood what was being said, but most of the time I'll be pretty spot on. I don't do it on purpose. It's just a capacity that sometimes pisses me off because if I'm not listening, like sometimes I'll be sitting around not listening to 5 different conversations at once, and my brain will be just a traffic jam of internal processes. But I digress. What's going to happen is I don't presume that ChatGPT can do that, the mellowing out thing. We're talking about Stephen King's writing. Stephen King, I think it's in his Dance Macabre book, which is a nonfiction book where he sort of, it's not quite a memoir. It's like his pedagogy. It's like how he writes. It's his, how do you call it pedagogy? It's his whatever the right way to describe it. He essentially discusses his methodology for developing and writing novels. You may or may not be aware, the dude was massively prolific, and there was a time there after a very potentially very tragic hit and run incident where we thought he would never write again, and he just doubled down and proceeded to continue to surprise us. Speaking of which, real, random, totally unsolicited endorsement. If you've never encountered any Stephen King content before and you're into horror, and you've been hearing buzz about it, I can give you my real, raw, radically unsolicited endorsement for the new TV show Welcome to Derry. It is peak Stephen King inspired television. There are many people who grew up and or loved the movie It with Tim Curry. In my humble opinion, although I still think it's awesome that it existed, first of all, I think we all collectively forgot that version of It was actually a made-for-TV miniseries, not a movie. It's been presented as a movie forever now because of DVDs, right? And, I think maybe it first came out on VHS. But I digress. Welcome to Derry is pretty awesome. I'll just leave it at that. It's if you're a Stephen King fan, right? You probably agree. If you're just into horror and looking for something different, you've never watched any Stephen King things. Now, I'm the first to admit, Stephen King movies over the years have been hit or miss. And it's different for everybody. Some people love this movie and that movie, and some people really don't like that movie and this movie. For example, there's a difference of opinion between the Tim Curry version of it and the, I don't remember his name now, version of it. Both as the character, the remakes, they made a two-part contemporary remake. It feels like 20 years ago now. It's been a hot minute. But Welcome to Derry is great. I don't know why I'm rambling on about that. That's a little tiny mini episode of the Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's almost daily, totally irrelevant media review podcast episode that just fell out of my mouth. I'm going to have to go back and make that podcast episode soon and actually go in depth into why I like it. There you go. Real quick. Stephen King's writing advice. Write something, especially if you feel inspired and you feel like a thing emerging. Stop what you're doing, capture it. Capture it on audio if you can't type it right then. Capture it on keyboard if you can't speak it right then. That's my dilemma. I'm never entirely sure which modality I'm going to be in. Even if I'm, like for this live stream, intentionally trying to activate the Muse channel in my brain. Sometimes it comes right out of my mouth. Sometimes, like for developing that prompt just now, I absolutely had to stop talking. It's two different gears, and neither the two shall ever operate at the same time. Or as Shakespeare might have put it, never the twain shall meet, which is a deep tragedy to me, but I digress. For me, writing a thing and putting it in the drawer to let it mellow is really helpful, because then I go back and revisit that. And I should, in theory, know what I wrote, but when I read it, or when I listen to it again, it kind of hits like something brand new, and my collaborative brain gets activated and starts asking questions, and starts finding flaws, and starts poking holes, and starts finding, the weak link, and starts positing new ideas, and starts exploring new variations of what is there on the page or in the audio file. So I'm trying to bring all of those elements together into one ongoing experimental live stream show for multiple purposes. One, to communicate with the future singularity AIs before they completely nuke this planet. Two, to hopefully identify and attract the actual audiences that are going to want to be part of this journey because they sampled my sample chapters and go, yeah, I want to read this book, and I want to be able to say to people, I read that book before it dropped at Barnes & Noble. I was part of the audience that helped that dude write that book by being a troll in his show. By stream slamming. I'm joking, but also not joking, because even that can sometimes be helpful. Okay, so yada yada yada. What are we doing? We're going back to ChatGPT. We asked that question, right? It is apparently now done. We got a little solid blue dot. Meaning of knowing. Procedurally, what we're going to do is I'm going to ignore that for a while. And then maybe next week, let's say, ambitiously, because the folks that are in town visiting will still be here next week. In fact, more people are inbound, as is usually the pattern. And whenever I finally get around to it, we're going to listen to what that result was, and I'm going to activate all those things. I'm going to apply my internal collaborative methodologies as if one of my collaborators we were back in session, we're back in the studio, and I'm like, hey everybody, remember how last week we talked about the question, what is the meaning of knowing? Let's go. What have you been, what is happening now with your expression of that? Obviously, I don't think that ChatGPT is going to update its understanding of its own response, but I'll get to hear it fresh after having had my own journey of contemplating it and thinking about it and preparing myself. Then I'll ask it questions. I'll lead it down a path of how do I then shape the ideas that are flowing in that conversation into something that it can be applied to the world building of the Zeppoverse setting of too many settings. There's many different planetary places that you could visit in the Zeppoverse, not the least of which is planet Zerth, which you are immediately dropped into in the opening chapters of 0 Hour, which I humbly invite you to go read. If you really want to get a simple and direct, like drop you right into the action of what my book series will hopefully develop and refine and become like, you should go read those pages. Welcome to this. No, that's the name of this other project we haven't even started yet. 0 Hour, available on my Wattpad profile for free. And by reading it, you help me, because the more people engage with the content, the more I go back to revisit it. Obviously, it's helpful if you want to be like a grammar tyrant. By all means, I welcome it. I will sometimes radically ignore the suggestions of grammar tyrants because sometimes I am purposefully doing something weird. But other times I'll be like, oh yeah, good point. I didn't really catch that, and I'll be inspired to solve that problem and make it all sound better. But also questions, comments, theories, speculative ideas, and or straight up trolling. Come on through. Drop those comments there because they will help me and kind of will be preserved and then fictionalized as part of the book series if I ever get around to coming full circle and really getting the final drafts of each of the books and their accompanying addendum books into the shape that they have yet to fully materialize. So that was that question, the meaning of knowing. That blue dot, it's done thinking. I'm not going to look at it now. Let's ask this other question. Let's go back to the question we were developing. And then we'll come full circle and wrap up this episode because I'll be lucky if my guests stay out any later than another hour or so. Okay, let's... In a mini version of what I just described, the putting it in the drawer and letting it mellow, I already don't remember, because, I've been rambling at you, what this other prompt, the first prompt, which I broke up into 2 paragraphs, what that prompt reads like. I already don't remember. So, one way to refresh my mind and activate the Muse systems in my cybernetically enhanced silicone brain would be to just read it with my eyeballs. But another way is to have my desktop automated text-to-voice reader read it back for us. Now, will this work the way I want it to? Hopefully, yes. We gotta amp up the volume so that the microphone will catch it. Let's listen to this prompt now, because that will hit different, at least for me. Here we go. Take it away, desktop reader.
Are you familiar with the psychological phenomena that some live theater performers and many theater-going audiences claim to experience when the collective brainwaves of the audience in the auditorium attenuate and synchronize because of the fact that they are all collectively and intentionally focusing their attention on the performance and the performers? Those who have noticed this often describe in terms very similar to the phenomena known in sports as being in the zone, wherein the mind seems to shift into a different, often surreal modality of operation which impacts and alters the perception of time and action, giving live theater performances a dreamlike cinematic quality.
That didn't need to be a question, that second bit. That's just sort of like information I'm giving ChatGPT. Now, sometimes I like to add prompts within the prompts, which is why, this previous prompt that we already dropped and are letting mellow, pretty straightforward, but it was still in 2 parts. Curiously. This is going to be an initial prompt, some contextual information, the zone is really what I'm trying to get it to understand. And then I'm now going to ask it to access its full range of available information. I wonder how technically I want to phrase it. Based on everything you know, degree techniques by which to trigger this phenomenon in potential audiences, in future audiences. Okay. Boom. I'm going to reread it now, just in my own voice. Here we go. Sometimes I do indeed like to start with Dear ChatGPT, and I'm kind of tempted to do that, just because I haven't done it in a while. Dear ChatGPT, are you familiar with the psychological phenomena that some live theater, R-E, spelled R-E because that's stage performance, not cinema, that some live theater performers, live theater artists, so that we can just generally consider it anyone in the system, in the industry, theater artists, and many. Okay, starting. Dear ChatGPT, are you familiar with the psychological phenomena that some live theater artists and many. Let's get rid of the qualifiers. That live theater artists and theater-going audiences claim to experience when the collective brain waves of the audience in the auditorium and I'm tempted to swap this wording because I think at a technical level it might matter. Because you got to synchronize first before you achieve attenuation, in my humble opinion. That's based on my own observation-based working philosophical theory about the magic of theater. So synchronize and attenuate. And attenuation is a real word. Actually, now I want to make sure, because I just said that, I'm now mildly paranoid that I'm using a word that means nothing. Attenuate, definition. Real quick. Attenuate. Reduce the force, effect, or value of. This research provides a glimmer of hope that coral reefs can attenuate. Oh. Have I been using this word wrong my entire theatrical career? Reduce the thickness and make thin. No. That's not what I thought. Make slender. Attenuare. lessen the amount, force, magnitude, or value of. Holy moly. Then what do I mean? Because I know there's a word that was once explained to me, not by some rando on the internet, but by a working professional in the industry that was a professor at the university that I studied theater at. Attenuate. Oh boy. Now I feel all kinds of attenuated by the sense. It almost means, this word means the opposite of what I mean it to mean. I mean it to like gather, concentrate, and sort of create a tentpole moment of like focus and fixation. Let's go similar. What's antonym? What's the antonym? Where's the opposite of? To reduce the amplitude of a signal. That's interesting. That's almost talking about amplitude of signals. That makes more sense as opposed to physically reducing the thickness of something. Thin, make thin, made slender. Now, what is the opposite of attenuate? Okay, there must be an opposite. Look at us learning something new right here, friends. What is the opposite of attenuate? No, did I just spell the word opposite wrong? Is that why it's not? No. Not one letter. What is the opposite of attenuate? Similar words, strengthened. Opposite verb, more similar words. The only opposite is strengthened. Good grief. I don't know. Also, Mother Nature, literally Mother Nature is calling. So please forgive me one moment as we bounce over here. Good, 4,421 kilobytes per second. I'm excited. That's the kind of number I want to see. Friends, I must answer this urgent mental phone call from Mother Nature. I'll be right back. Here is some music for you. I'm going to crank it up. I'll be right back in just a second. folks. Thank you for your patience. DJ said you're too loud. Let's drop this back down to 44 is the new number. Okay, we're back. Hello, friends. Attenuate. This is. My brain's melted a little. For like going on 35 years, slightly more than that, ever since whenever I first heard that word, possibly used incorrectly, I thought that attenuation, when it came to the physiology of brainwaves and attention and focus, meant some sort of heightening and like tent pole unification. You know, people might be familiar with what a tent pole moment is. It's when it comes from an analogy of back in the day when we would, have circuses, traveling circuses. The first thing you need to do is raise a tent, which is not easy, and it's a complicated process. And if you get it wrong, you could like ruin the tent. But the central pole reaching its maximum height sets the tension, and then the tent is up and all of its structural elements are balanced, right? That's the way it was used. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why attenuate is not that word. Let's ask it. Right now we're asking just the internet. Definition of the phrase tent pole moment. Tentpole tent, tentpole films, tentpole events, tentpole moment. Am I crazy? Is this not a known thing? This might be like what y'all sometimes call your Mandela effect, but it's just, parallel universes have different meaning. A pivotal, central, and critical event in a narrative, marketing campaign, or project that provides structure and support. In storytelling, it is a key plot point that keeps the story from sagging in the middle. It's still a different, not quite the way I remember it being used and expressed to me. Okay, let's go back to our draft here. We're going to have to update this draft so that we're not feeding our collaborator a weird red herring misleading term, which could ruin the results. This is why people think prompting an AI is so easy. Like, not if you want to get really decent results. And in my case, results that I can actually take inspiration from, break down, process, reintegrate into my own creative flow, and like write something that is different in wording and style and structure and what it generates, but conveys the information that it shared with me, merged with whatever I'm trying to bring to the table. So for the record, these conversations with the AI, they're only 1/3 of my overall process. So pin on the corkboard, we will eventually journey through the other 2/3 of the process, and you'll see what I mean. But put a pin on the corkboard about that. Make a magic movie loop. Clip that, Eclipse. So tune in for more of this exploration in the magic distant future. In the meantime, thank you for joining me so far. And if you have any questions, please do drop them in chat. I will attend to them. And if you find this sort of thing engaging, please do indeed, make your own magic movie loops, and or tell people about this project in word of mouth. Just please, for the love of all things divine, do not steal my ideas. Here we go. Let's revisit this question. Are you familiar with the psychological phenomena I want to add a caveat like, I don't know what this is called. The psychological phenomena of which I am unsure the name of. That is the most grammatically of which. That's a very clunky construction, but the AIs are at least clever enough to sort of like work with it. Many people go, what did you just say? When I drop a big multi-layered run-on sentence, but ChatGPT has always taken it in stride, so we'll see what comes out of it. I don't mind being weird and awkward, as long as it's really specific. Are you familiar with the psychological phenomena of which I am unaware of the name of which I am unaware of? I am unaware the name of, just unaware the name of. Too many ofs in that. That live theater artists and theater-going audiences claim to experience when the collective brainwaves of the audience in the auditorium and the performers on stage, let's keep it theoretical, seem to synchronize and I really want to use the word attenuate, because for my entire professional life working in and here's the thing, friends, I'm not speaking from abstract theory here when it comes to this moment. I have dedicated many hours, days, weeks in the theater, in like live performances, to observe the subtle and intangible and difficult to describe sensations that accompany this very real phenomena. Now, I believe it's real for two reasons. I know I've been exposed to psychological research, none of which I have at my disposal, because I read about this in school, and that was 100 years ago. But I've also, like I've said, worked in the industry for my entire adult life. In fact, I started working in live entertainment, in theatrical format, before I was an adult. Like, not working professionally, but in school and whatnot. So if you include my educational experience, that's 40 years of being in a theater, in a room full of audience, focusing their attention on a show, on the performers, and either being amongst them in the audience myself, or on stage as a performer, or in and about the backstage, above stage, understage areas as a technician. And I've tuned into this whole phenomenon. There's always a moment, there's always several moments. There's a whole journey, in my opinion. But there is a moment that is the initial psychological tent pole moment where everyone's attention goes from distracted and disparate and about the person next to you, or the soda, or the conversation, or the tea, or whatever, and then boom, you're like zoomed in, and everyone's like deeply connected to the curtain rising and all that. And I know that in theater theory, of which there is a whole, you can almost say there's a philosophy of theater with many different competing analyses and people's different versions of theory that that talks about this. I just don't have any of those books right in front of me, and I don't have any of that research at my disposal. So we're going to see what this little robot can come up with together, to then utilize it. Seem to synchronize and chaotic
I'm trying to work around the fact that I looked up the word attenuate, and it does not mean what I think it means, or at least the way I've been using it. That's the fun thing about words. They really are common use. If no one's using the word attenuate to mean to make a thing thinner, then I'm going to appropriate that word. And in my universe, in my book series, and in my working theories about entertainment and theater and even cinema, I'm going to use it to mean what I've always sort of, I guess, thought incorrectly it actually did mean. So, here we go. Okay. Kind of. How to phrase now? This is just a whole nother new burden of trying to explain that one word so that the prompt makes sense. Where the Stanton, where the attention of. Spell the word where the attention of the audience and performers seems to There we go. I think we bridged that gap. We've taken out the word attenuation. Now I want to try and work that word back in, but we're going to add that to the conversation later on. I'm actually going to draft that up right now, too. Attenuate. But we won't drop that in as part of the initial prompt. This is getting really clunky, but in a way, I guess, I'm sort of trying to train ChatGPT to think and write like me. Not so that it can do it for me, but so that when it renders results, it's so that when it thinks about what I ask it, it's more inclined to actually understand. But who knows? Maybe this will backfire on my face. I hope it doesn't. I really do hope it does not. But the goal is to eventually be able to achieve what I achieved in my successful experimental collaborative development of other materials, where what happens is net result is when I have applied my quote patent pending, which is more of a joke than anything else because I don't think patent this, but my quote patent pending proprietary meta hyper collaborative development process, the end result, the final product, the script that comes out of that, the text or the pages, whichever you prefer, they are something, those words, that text, that material, that content is something that neither I or any of the other participants in the proprietary process could have or would have ever written on our own, we would have written something else or not written anything at all. And that's what I'm all about. Okay. Final pass on this question or this prompt. I think we might have just locked it in. Let's listen to it this time though. Here we go. Let me double check things because I get paranoid. I have rambled on for days and then at the end of it found out that I was actually not live or whatever. Like I wasn't, my microphone was muted. In fact, DJ said, here, let's go ahead and tune you down for now. Let's leave that there. We'll keep you running so that whatever's playing in the background will be what we bring the volume back up on. But okay. My peak meter is peaking. Good. We'll put you back in performance mode. And then we'll jump back on through the Infinity desktop portal of infinities. We'll minimize that. We'll bring up the notepad. Let's now listen to the revised and hopefully mostly complete new multi-ingredient prompt. Speech. Where are you, speech? There you are.
Dear ChatGPT, are you familiar with the psychological phenomena, of which I am unaware the name of, that live theater artists and theater-going audiences claim to experience when the collective brainwaves of the audience in the auditorium and the performers on stage seem to synchronize and the previously chaotic and individual focus and attention of everyone seem to gather together in a kind of tent pole moment where the attention of audience and performers seem to merge into one collective dream-like experience because of the fact that they are all collectively and intentionally focusing their attention on the performance and the performers? Those who have noticed this often describe in terms very similar to the phenomena known in sports as being in the zone wherein the mind seems to shift into a different, often surreal modality of operation which impacts and alters the perception of time and action, giving live theater performances a dreamlike cinematic quality based on everything you know and all the information you can access. Can you explain how this phenomena occurs, and also, do you think you could help me develop ways in which to create techniques by which to trigger this phenomena in future audiences by working them into the scripts we will be developing together?
As clunky as that is, I am satisfied. That's the way we're going to ask. That's the way we're going to kick off this conversation. Okay. Ready to go. All right, so now, here we go. We've got proof that I wrote this here. It's November 10th, 2025, 4:43 p.m. That's what I wrote. I wrote that. Okay? So let's be really, really clear. ChatGPT didn't write that. I wrote that. Let's ask ChatGPT what it thinks about that. All right, let's go through and do a final, because here I have spell checking privileges. Okay, here we go. For this question, we're not going to just drop it and go. We're going to actually let it work and check out what its results are. So again, for anyone just joining us, disclaimer. I am not an AI. I am a human artist cosplaying as a living cybernetic silicone animatronic robot being from a parallax dimension, sent here to warn you about your own self-destructive tendencies, you lovely, lovely talking meatbags. And we're going to do that vis-a-vis an action-adventure sci-fi rom-com fan fiction book series of multi-part book series. Series. No. Circes? No. Siri. No, it's not octopi. Anyways, you get the point. Here we go. Let's hit return. It's going to think. Now, one of the things that it now knows is that I am Mr. Zeppo. It didn't used to know that. It didn't used to respond with, well, thank you for asking me, Mr. Zeppo. But it does now.
because of this new. It's recent. In the last I don't know, in the last quarter or two, 3 to 6 months. For those of you who do not know what that means, no judgment. It has attained the ability to remember and utilize previous discussions. All right. Oh my God, there's a bunch of stuff. It's dumping things, and we're getting down to the Zeppoverse applications. Okay, the very first bit that just caught my eye, after the fact that I'd forgotten that I had asked it to consider me and reference me as Mr. Zeppo. I'd forgot about that. So that was why I was like, ooh, look, it knows my name. Ooh. The next bit I just noticed is that it says, yes, I am familiar with the phenomena you're describing, though it doesn't have a single universally agreed upon name. It has apparently been studied and described under several overlapping frameworks. Okay, I'm not going to read it all because my voice is already complaining. I haven't gone I haven't done a Zeppoverse world building project episode in a really long time. So I have this horrible tendency, despite being a professionally trained vocal performer, I drink and smoke and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes, and I do not mitigate any of those negative impacts with proper theatrical vocal warm-ups before rambling for multiple hours at a time on my live stream, which is bad. I've literally talked myself hoarse before, and then it took me several days to recover. Trying to avoid that now. Okay. Before we do, real quick, let's double check what's going on over here. We're staying nice and solid. Oh, hallelujah. Gratitude to the internet and computer gods and goddesses. Thank you. I was having so many technical issues over the past insert time frame here, and it's really nice to finally feel more confident than I've ever felt before about my baseline stream quality. It's not the best that it could be, but it's the best it has ever been. Those are two different statements, right? It is not the best that it could be, but right now, the quality we're seeing the stream in is the best that it has ever been, in my experience. Okay, that's all I wanted to do on this page. Let's take TikTok live roll call. That moment you TikTokers been waiting for. Me acknowledging you by clicking on this tab. Here we go. I got to put my eyes in the spot or else I miss the first two names. That's how quickly those names roll by, which annoys me. But that's a whole pin on the corkboard. I've over-explained my position about that and my, what I wish they would do that if I was involved, I would totally write that up as a bug and submit suggestions for quality of life improvements to the developers, but I totally am not. Here we go. TikTok roll call. Blue Material, Axel, Roasty Toasties, 2 emojis, Alianta, DJ Valfon, and Dragon, James Longtin 97. 26 viewers so far. Thanks to everybody who's stopped by and probably observed my live stream for approximately 30 seconds. If you're no longer here, you're about to miss out on the best part. But for anybody who dropped in for a few minutes and or happens to be here right now and is going to move on, there will be, hopefully, some interesting short-form magic movie loops dropping from this episode in the not-too-distant future. Okay, let's get back to the thing. Let's take a moment. Oh, wait, I don't want my face just being, you know what? Leave it. I was going to mute the camera, but whatever. Let's just listen to what this resulting response has got to say. Here we go. Read aloud for us, dear ChatGPT, the response to my clunky and strangely formulated prompt.
Excellent question, Mr. Zeppo. You've just touched on one of the most profound and little understood intersections between psychology, neuroscience, and the performing arts.
Interesting.
Yes, I am familiar with the phenomenon you're describing, Though it doesn't have a single universally agreed upon scientific name, it's been studied and described under several overlapping frameworks.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it.
1. The phenomenon itself, group flow or collective flow. In psychology and performance studies, what you're describing most closely aligns with group flow,
Okay.
an extension of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow state applied to groups.
Yes.
Flow, a state of deep absorption, effortless action, and timeless focus.
That, I'm
Group flow
serious.
occurs when multiple individuals, actors, musicians, dancers, athletes, or audiences
Yep.
enter synchronized states of flow together.
It's a beautiful
When the
thing.
audience and performers lock into that shared rhythm, breathing together, laughing together, responding to emotional beats in sync, their brainwave patterns literally begin to entrain, synchronize in frequency and phase. This has been observed in EEG and fMRI studies of musicians, actors, and even storytelling audiences. Nashla 2. Related and overlapping concepts. Let's outline the main fields that describe this same event through different lenses. Concept, field, description. Group flow, psychology. Shared flow state among people engaged in a collective task, Sawyer, 2007. Neural entrainment,
Citations for
cognitive
study.
neuroscience, synchronization of neural oscillations across brains due to shared sensory input and emotional resonance.
Emotional
Liminal
resonance.
space, communitas, performance anthropology, Victor Turner, a temporary dissolution of individuality where audience and performers share a unified consciousness. Co-presence, shared attention field, performance theory, the awareness of being together in a performance that creates a heightened sense of immediacy and empathy. Temporal entrainment, neuroscience musicology, the alignment of internal rhythms, heartbeat breathing, motor anticipation to external rhythms, sound, movement, narrative pacing. The zone, flow state, sports psychology, deep immersion where the sense of self dissolves and action feels automatic and transcendent.
Yes.
3. How it happens, a neuropsychological breakdown. Let's unpack the mechanism. A. Attention synchronization. Everyone's attention narrows onto the same stimuli, the performer, the words, the gesture, the music. This collective focus synchronizes alpha and theta brainwave patterns between participants. B. Mirror neurons and empathic resonance. When the audience watches emotional expression or physical action, their mirror neuron systems simulate that action internally. They are feeling the performance from the inside. This creates emotional contagion, a shared empathic pulse that blurs the line between observer and actor. Physiological co-regulation, heart rates, breathing rhythms, and even micro-movements begin to align. Studies on concertgoers and actors show measurable synchrony in pulse and respiration during high engagement moments.
Legit.
D. Emotional coherence and the limbic bridge. The limbic system, a seat of emotional resonance, becomes co-activated across the group. Everyone feels the same emotion together, amplifying it. E. Prefrontal quieting and the dissolution of ego. In flow states, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-awareness and time tracking, partially deactivates. This leads to a sense of timelessness and unity, akin to dreamlike absorption or trance. 4. How to trigger this phenomenon intentionally in theatre. Yes, absolutely. We can design techniques to induce or enhance this collective synchrony through scripting, staging, pacing, and sound design. Below are categories of creative triggers you can weave into your future Zeppoverse projects. Rhythmic and repetitive patterns. Repetition of words, gestures, or musical motifs entrains audience attention. Example, Shakespearean iambic pentameter, ritualistic chanting, or chorus responses in Greek tragedy. B. Controlled breath and pause. Actors pacing and silence control, audience breathing subconsciously. Long shared pauses create tension that forces synchronization. Everyone holds breath together. C. Ritualized structure. Borrow from religious or ritual performance, cyclical sequences, symbolic gestures, call and response. These evoke liminal states where normal consciousness suspends. D. Emotional crescendo design. Engineer emotional waves that bring everyone to simultaneous catharsis, a literal tentpole moment. This is what Aristotle called catharsis, which neuroscientists now link to dopamine and oxytocin release, hormones of bonding and transcendence. Immersive environments and multisensory focus. Lighting, sound, scent, and space can be used to eliminate distractions and direct all sensory input to one focus point, amplifying entrainment. F. Meta-awareness and audience inclusion. Break the fourth wall subtly. Invite audience into co-creation, eye contact, shared movement, chanting, or synchronized actions. This creates feedback loops where audience energy affects performers and vice versa. 5. Zeppoverse application. You could develop a scripted entrainment architecture, a dramaturgical design protocol that intentionally builds these phenomena into story structure and performance rhythm. A few possible tools. 1. Neurotemporal story mapping. Map emotional tempo curves against expected heart rate coherence. 2. Flow triggers embedded in dialogue. Certain cadences and repeated motifs that lull audience into rhythm. 3. Choreographed collective silence. Engineered moments where both actors and audience suspend movement simultaneously. 4. Transpersonal symbolism, visual or spoken motifs that activate deep archetypes, pulling the subconscious into sync, a Jungian entrainment method. If you'd like, I can help you draft a codified performer audience entrainment protocol, a document or toolkit blending neuroscience, ritual theory, and theatrical dramaturgy to serve as part of your Zeppoverse World Bible, giving future writers and directors a framework for designing these collective transcendence moments. Would you like me to begin outlining that framework for you next?
Okay. So first, a few thoughts about the details here. Some of this was new information to me, but most of it is stuff that I was already aware of and had internalized throughout my entire journey from a very young age, both as an observer of our own reality and the way human beings interact with each other, and also because I got interested in dance and song and choir and theater in general at a relatively young age. By high school, I was already studying advanced authors not usually studied in high school drama departments. But that's a pin on the corkboard. What's interesting to me is, and I say that not to brag, but rather, if someone had asked me that question, I would have explained it to the best of my ability in my own language. And I would have not been able to identify and pull and cite actual relevant sources from the different places. Now, there is the question of whether or not there's any chat AI delusion going on in this answer. And the only place I would be concerned about it, or even remotely think that it might be happening, is in any potential references it is making citations for, like that one study that it listed with name and date, or at least year. But all of these things make sense, and although I wouldn't have been able to generate this exact content if someone had just said, sit down at a typewriter and explain that, I would have done it in my own way, which would have sounded very different. In fact, I was doing so before we asked, in the course of developing the prompt. Okay, so I'm glad that we captured this. Let's repurpose the word attenuate and use it here. Instead of instead in your future responses. But in your future? No, future's too weird. There's a word that starts with a P. Never mind. In your response. Okay, but now we're gonna take this. We're gonna copy it out. We're gonna put it over here. So this is something that I find fascinating because sometimes there's options, but sometimes it says, I think we should do this next. And it's got a really singular, strong suggestion. As in this case, if you'd like, I can help you draft a codified performer audience entrainment protocol. So I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna, instead of just going get like a generic. Okay, spell check. Got to be a comma. Oh man, I've had the Xbox on this entire time because I thought I might sneak in a little login time to like not miss out on that. I haven't touched any of the games that I present as part of the gaming action portion of the Too Many Live Streams thing. But oh well, it needs an app because it's just been on this entire time. Yes, please proceed with your proposed drafting. With your proposed draft. No, let's move draft over because I want to use the action verb form. Yes, please proceed with the of your proposed set of protocols and insert thing from earlier. Yes, please proceed with the drafting of your proposed set of protocol. Oh yeah, I misspelled protocols. And let's repurpose the word attenuate. And that shouldn't be capital. And let's grab and repurpose the word attenuate. To represent this phenomena. In your that's right. In all future discussion. I can't spell phenomena correctly. Oh, I know why. Because it ends with an ah sound, but it's spelt with an on sound, and it always throws me off. Thank you. Always be nice to the AI. All right. We're gonna let it think, and we're gonna hear out. No, we're gonna let it think, and we're gonna return to this subject in a future episode because I am strongly of the intuitive suspicion that my uninterrupted free time is very quickly coming to an end. And I want to honor the fact that I'm here. I'm not here alone for the course of this month. I'm here with a fluctuating number of members of my real world family, the details of which is none of your business, but that I would like to dedicate as much time as possible to actually being present with them in a very free of my screens and free of my projects kind of way. But I will say this. I can't continue to neglect this channel, either in the development stuff or in the gaming action stuff. So I'm going to try Although I don't want to set up an expectation and then fail. Either tonight or during the course of the several following evenings, I'm going to try to, as best as I can, do something during the course of the day when I have some free time, because they often go and do stuff without me because, they're not just here to visit me. They're here to do other things too. It's all kind of a whirlwind yearly tradition of multiple rituals that they have. And I mean, I use the word rituals loosely. It's not what some people may want to jump to the conclusions of that word might mean. But like personal rituals, like going to go do this thing and going to go gift shopping for others because, they're here and there's great shopping, etc. So anyways, moving forward, a programming note. It's going to be a little sporadic. It's going to be a little intermittent. It will be less consistent than I usually am. But I'm going to try to do something during the early part of the day, either a brief podcast episode or a short, or the releasing of some previously unposted magic movie loops, or actually just sitting here and trying to write, whether it's on live stream or not. And then in the evenings, after we've concluded our familial socialization agenda for the day, I'm going to try to dig into my sleep hours to not completely avoid or neglect or ignore my ongoing juggling way too many games for one person to play at once sort of ambitions of live streaming video game action. So stay tuned for all of that in the coming hours, days, and weeks. And then, as I said before, once I am able to send everyone back off from whence they came for the end of the year, until they may or may not return into the following year around the same time, a return to what will hopefully be a reinvigorated, I don't know what other word to use, reinvigorated and more active daily live stream schedule, which will include either interacting with and like having a conversation with myself based on pre-existing podcast episodes, or recording new podcast episodes, or sitting here and showing you the next 2/3 of my hitherto publicly unshared. I've never published my collaborative process anywhere. In another universe, I'm a theater professor at a prestigious university with at least one book on the shelf that's like The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's Meta-Theatrical Collaborative Procedural Protocols. But okay, at any rate, real quick before we go, let's double check to see if there's any new names over on the TikTok live roll call widget. So when we come back to this segment known as the Zeppoverse World Building Project, we will start right here. We're going to revisit all this that we did not read, and we're going to integrate that and talk about it and absorb it, see what interesting things it came up with. Then we'll check out what's going on in Meaning of Knowing, and then we're going to, in subsequent episodes, that's the word I was looking for. It didn't start with P, just had a big P in it. That was a big P? That sounded terrible. It was a spoonerism, but an internal spoonerism, because there's like, I don't want to get sidebarred on spoonerisms, but I'm fascinated by them. Put a pin on the corkboard. So we'll come back to that. Thank you to this that helped, and it all came full circle. We're going to be using the word attenuation. We're going to be hijacking that word from its declining common use and repurposing it as words will often, be as humans will often do with words, as words will often go through that process and hopefully sort of spark a new reinterpretation of that word so that more people can key into this phenomena. This phenomena, there's some sort of version of it that happens internally when one is alone and deeply engaged in meditation. But that's another pin on the cork board. So join us as this continues to unfold and unravel and evolve. This has been today's medium short length episode of the Zeppoverse World Building Project. Oh, right, and we're about to do TikTok Live. Boom. James Law. Oh, no more new ones. That was it. That was everybody. No new ones. Thanks to everybody that did drop by. I don't know if it made any sense. Oh, look at that. Apparently, according to Twitch TV monitor, I now finally have 2 viewers after 2 hours of that number sitting at 0. Forgive me, dear new 2 viewers that just joined us, relatively speaking. If you have any questions, I will pause the unwinding and the outro of the show right now. If you'd like to drop a comment or a question or a trolling ridicule remark, by all means do it. You've got a couple of moments, a couple of seconds, but I do need to wrap things up because I'm fairly certain. I mean, the longer I go, the more likely it is that we're going to have a really abrupt ending because I'll get interrupted because everyone's going to show up. So yeah, this episode has been like a foundational ingredient. This episode has been about a methodological concept that I want to examine and develop and extrapolate on, and also imbue all future conversations with the chat machine, but also make sure that leads to the incorporation of these ideas and whatever potential techniques we define and or identify that we might integrate into the very language and the very storytelling structures of the ever-evolving, ever-changing Zeppoverse book series. And again, forgive the over-promotion, but if you found any of it interesting, please be sure to come on through and click on solo.to/Mr. Zeppo, or type that into your search bar, and then click on, if you want to dive right into seeing, reading, sampling chapters, they've got action, there's romance, there's steamy bits, there's comedy bits, there's abstract absurdist bits, there's a deep dash infusion, a deep dash? That's not the word I meant to say. This is real, raw, and radically unscripted stuff right here, friends. No one is telling me what to say. Whether we're talking about my book series, or where I'm sharing my opinion about a video game that I'm reviewing, which I'm so sorry, I've not done a first impression review episode in so long. And there's so many cool looking little indie and mid-level and big AAA games that have come out that I am supposed to do. I'm kind of using this opportunity, this we're not quite at the end of the year, to reboot everything in a way, as I often do. I tend to reboot myself quite a bit because, I am a living artificial silicon animatronic robotnik being from a parallax dimension sent here to warn you, you crazy humans, that you are doing all the cosmos wrong and dirty. We were somewhere else though. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, come on through to solo.to. Oh, I totally acted that out, and I don't know if I had a camera on. I hope I did. Come on through solo.to/Mr. Zeppo. Oh yeah, don't forget, some of this has been AI, but not all of it. Did I lose that? Oh, I never pasted that over. I'll do that later. So stay tuned. Smash the follow button. Click through the links. You know the drill. Follow me on social media, especially if you want to engage in my real-life public discourse, where I sort of very half-assed, very subtly or not very, like, I'm still just being me, but I present as if I were the living artificial cybernetic nanotechnology being that is stranded here on planet Zerth with all of you Zoomans and your crazy, crazy socio-political madhouse roller coaster rodeo show that you're putting on. But yeah, I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to bid you a fond farewell. I'm going to humbly invite you to come on back. I'm going to check where we are on the thing. Are we on main cam? No, we're on chat show. There you go. End of self-promotion sequence. Please, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I've said all the things I got to say. Tune in for more. And as always, please engage. The comments, the questions, and yes, even the trolling are not just welcome, they're encouraged. I am soliciting you to participate in this ongoing, chaotically crazy, but still with a bit of methodology in it, ongoing development process, and of course also the video game live stream extravaganza. And yeah, farewell, friends. I shall return shortly, but for now, this episode is now ending. Thank you so much for tuning in. Ciao for now, friends. Remember to go be... Hold on, give me the camera back. Remember, friends, no matter what else is going on in the world, and I know there are some wild and wacky and often intolerable things going on in the world, please, 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 please do, for the love of all things Zen, try and be good human beings to yourselves and each other out there, especially when it's difficult. Trust me, I fail at it all the time. Sometimes by accident, sometimes through willful neglect of my own philosophy, and sometimes because people just downright trying to punch me in the face, metaphorically speaking, with the button pushing. But either way, remember, we have always been each other. Every human being alive on this planet is genetically 99.9 with 1,000 nines identical to everyone else, despite all the weird, crazy, nuanced differences that keep us divided and distracted from one another. We are truly all siblings in the living cosmos. So, maybe let's start acting like it better. Because, it might help. What do I know, though? I'm just a weird cartoon character from a cartoon you've never heard of because I've never animated my cartoon yet. Peace out. I'll be back again soon. As always, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends.